It was Colonel Mustard in the family room with a Tibetan prayer bowl. I wanted to take this room and change it from beige and boring to mustard and magnificent. I think I've accomplished it, but also kind of bringing me back to this time that feels nostalgic, for me at least, from old TV shows and old movies that I've seen from the 70s and 60s. And I wanted to really create a room with these shades that aren't as popular nowadays, or at least in this amount, in this dosage, but that for me feels enveloping, warm, and cozy. And I'm doing that with these mustard tones. The way that I achieved the mustard tones for this wall was to focus first on the main wall that we can see through the arch from the pumpkin orange living room. And what I found while I was working on this wall is that the shade that I mixed, handmade, I custom make these colors myself. I just mix them and then see how they dry. It's not the most efficient, but to me, it's kind of like I'm painting canvas. It's not like I'm going to the paint store and just having them create the shade for me. That has some limitations and some challenges because it's not easy to mix up an exact batch of the same color. So I always have to make a little bit extra, more than I might think I might need to use. And that was useful in this case because the first shade that I painted the wall, which you can see, and I was having fun, I found some little faces in it. While I was painting this wall, it ended up looking a little bit more of a greenish mustard shade. And I felt like that stood out a lot when I looked through the arch from the pumpkin orange living room. And when we look through that archway, those warm shades of kind of yellowy orange that is covering the archway made the wall look very green. So I had to go back, even though I had fun painting that wall in the kind of greenish mustard shade that some people might find despicable and terrible, but for me is wonderful and retro. And hopefully you can see I tied it in with my outfit, of course. I had to go back and repaint it all, which is okay. I mean, it's like, okay, it's deeper. I like layering shades and whatever. I did make extra of that color and I used it on the back wall, which is adjacent to the kitchen, which is more of a greenish kitchen. So that actually goes with the flow of my house, which is to go in a sort of rainbow flow on this level with kind of desaturated 70s tones. So going from kind of cinnamon, paprika, pumpkin orange, burnt orange, lighter orange, tangerine, like muted tangerine orange, and then through the archway into a mustardy tone. I wanted it to be an experience when you look around that room and you walk in here, that you experience a kind of rainbow flow. That's where you can really appreciate it. And I want this space, for me, when I walk through it, to be a joy to walk through and make me feel the satisfaction that each of the walls has a slightly different shade and it flows in a way that's pleasing for me when I experience this space. Another challenge working on this room was to decide what kind of artwork and where was I going to place it. I don't want to do things that are too standard. I always want every room to have something that looks a little bit extra or a little bit too much for other people's taste. I love circles, and so I'm trying to add curves and circles wherever I can, or ovals or things like that. But because I've been accumulating and collecting several octagonal frames, I wanted to group them together in a space that I thought would be suitable. And this room turned out to be the right place for it. So we have all of these octagons. I was so happy when I found this mirror. That really just gave a different dimension because there's a darker glass that is a mirror around the frame. And then it's a lighter normal mirror in the other main pane of glass there. And I still have to fill in that. That's another project. I painted it kind of greenish originally, the insert that goes underneath that octagonal frame in the corner. But I realized that became a little bit darker in that corner. And I think I'm going to paint it more with kind of off-white or lighten it up a little bit. So that way that pops out a little bit brighter in that corner. When I was positioning these, I got the biggest ones first. Then I created smaller groups with the smaller frames. And I like it kind of almost like how it goes from larger pieces and then smaller groupings. And when I do that, I don't always follow the general rules for gallery walls is to try to keep the spacing between the frames similar. That's easier when you're dealing with rectangles. But when you're not dealing with rectangles, you kind of have to think that the spaces are never going to be that precise anyway, especially when you're dealing with round forms, or in this case, octagons, that I think it's good to have a little bit of repetition of general spacing between the big pieces, and then I got a little bit smaller spacing into little groups of kind of 5 or 4 up there, or 4 or 5 up there, and kind of keeping those. There's some repetition, but they're kind of varying. And for me, it's almost like a visual music where there's kind of like punctuation, or when I look at it, I kind of think almost like Morse code, like dots and dashes is like longer than short, and double short, and then a little bit longer. And I kind of see it in a sort of visual Morse code that seems pleasing to me surrounding these bigger frames. In my design approach of accepting things that are also sometimes imperfect and trying to embrace those as part of the beauty, I had to also consider these frames. Some of them, like for example, the frame that I ended up with the giant lion tapestry, I actually had another frame that was bigger and almost better tones for the room with more mustard tones. And it was, more expansive and taller and just bigger overall. And it seemed like it would work better with the color. But in actuality, it kind of felt like it kind of diminished the spacing of this, and it didn't kind of match with the contrast of the brown on these frames because the frame was a bit more gold. And I like that this lion has a bit more brown outlining and contrast, and that you can kind of see it from across the room. It kind of draws you into the room saying, I want to see what this lion is hunting or stalking or majestically standing over. And you can see that when you sit down in the adjacent room. And I feel like it draws you in more than the smaller details of the other tapestry that I was considering. Don't worry, that tapestry will not be wasted. Everything that I purchase either will find a home or a new purpose, or reimagining. Like I thought maybe I could use those tapestries to insert on the back of a coat, a winter coat with tapestry on the back. Maybe I can use part of it as the sleeves or some detail on another coat that I already have that I'm going to upcycle. Watch out for those videos when I get around to it. I want to share more of my creative projects with you, and I hope you're along for the ride. I try to do things that aren't necessarily pieces that you'd say, oh, I'm going to wear this to the gym in the middle of the United States. But if you do, I'm here cheering for you, because I understand that when I've traveled to places where people aren't as eccentric fashion-wise, that I do give a little bit of a different vibe to them. And some people smile, some people sneer, some people look questioningly, some people look with disapproval. But I also feel like I'm bringing a little bit more of something that will help people accept difference in those places. When I relate it back to my home, don't care if other people think it's ugly, because I know that there's going to be somebody out there who now can see me thanks to the internet and social media, who will be like, oh, I like that too. I feel like I could do that with one of my rooms. Maybe I'm not going to do it to my whole house, but people start with their powder rooms. But my philosophy is take that thing that you would like to do to jazz up your powder room and make a whole room out of it. Make something that has a statement. Make something that makes you feel an impact when you walk into that space. And go for it. You can always change it. Can I take a minute to say how much I love these grapes? They're all different materials like plastic and stone and glass. But as I mentioned in the video of me creating my burnt orange living room, I love fake fruit. It has a nostalgic quality to me that I think other people can appreciate, but for me specifically, it was literally a forbidden fruit. I went to my step-grandmother's home, and I didn't understand she was my step-grandma, but I knew she was like the not nice one, Grandma Betty. She would not let me touch the fruit on the middle of her table. It was fake, and I always wanted to squeeze the little plastic grapes and stuff like that. Wouldn't let us touch the fake fruit, and even though I did, a couple times, but I got away with it. But then as I saw these appear in markets and thrift shops around the world, I've been collecting them in shades that would go with the kind of 60s, 70s themed rooms in the house. So this is the kind of greenish, mustardy colored bunch that I put here, and I love that. I hope you enjoyed the creation of this mustard family room, and I hope you'll continue when you see me create the wall unit that I'm going to create for entertainment, for television and stuff, with a special technique that I hope works out in an interesting and fun way that looks quirky and unique. and stay tuned for that video. Keep watching for more creative projects and more fun and visual interest. And if you enjoy this content and you like what I'm trying to share with you, my own unique creativity, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, because I'm starting out this YouTube channel and I don't know where it's going to go, but I could appreciate anybody who's out there in the world who appreciates my eccentricity and wants to follow me along for the journey.